Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com. This is the first episode of a video series where I'll be going over all the different plugins put out by Nik Software. Now this video series is similar to the video series I'm currently doing where I'm going over all the plugins put out by Topaz Labs. Now a lot of photographers prefer the Nik collection over the Topaz Labs collection, mainly for two reasons. The Nik collection is considerably cheaper. It's less than half the price of the Topaz Labs collection. But with that said, you are getting less number of plugins with the Nik collection than you are with the Topaz Labs collection. But that leads us to the second reason why people prefer the Nik collection. The plugins that are in the Nik collection are excellent. They're very well done and they're very easy to use. They're almost essential for a photographer. So that is why many photographers just prefer the Nik collection. Very easy to use, and they're very well done, and they work well. So in this video, we're going to be going over Color Efex Pro 4. In future videos, I'll be going over all the different Nik plugins. And I'll be continuing my series, if anyone's asking or wondering, on the Topaz Labs plugins as well. All right. Now, the Nik plugins work in Lightroom, Photoshop, and Aperture. I'll be using them from Lightroom because it's just more convenient for me. Now, to summon a plugin from Lightroom, you could do it one of three different ways. You could right-click on the thumbnail itself and go up to Edit In, and then go down. In this case, we're going to use Color Efex Pro 4. You could right-click on the image and go down to Edit In. Or you could go up to the top menu and go to Photo, Edit In, and we're using Color Efex Pro 4. Now you come up with this box. If you're shooting RAW, the only thing active will be Edit a Copy with Lightroom Adjustments. You'll have to pick that, and it's going to create a TIFF file usually. And you'd send the TIFF file over to the plugin. In my case, I converted my RAW file to a TIFF file to save time. So I'm going to be editing the original, because it's the original TIFF file. Now, if you shoot JPEG, I strongly suggest that you edit a copy with Lightroom Adjustments. That way, if a week later you don't like what you did in the Nik plugin, you still have the original file to fall back on. So, as I mentioned, I'm editing the original TIFF file because I already converted it. Now, one thing that the Nik plugins have that is similar to the Topaz plugins, it has what they call sticky controls. Whatever I did in this plugin the last time I used it will get applied to the next image I load into it. And as you can see over here on the right, it has a filter called Indian Summer. Apparently, the last time I was in this plugin, I used that filter. So it automatically got applied to this cityscape image. I hate that feature, but all the plugins seem to do it, and I guess people like it. But anyways, I digress. We'll talk about the workspace here, and it's very similar to the Topaz Labs workspace with some slight differences. For example, on the left-hand side, you're going to see here a bunch of folders, more or less collections. They're called collections in Topaz Labs. You could call them folders or collections, it doesn't matter. And below it, you'll have what you think could be presets, but they're technically not presets. These are filters. And there's all these different filters that you have in Color Efex Pro. And for example, on this image, you could see it added automatically an Indian Summer filter. And we'll get to more of that in a minute. To the right of this area where your filters are, we have the workspace itself where we could see the image. We could compare the before and after by clicking this button right here. Hold it in, there's before, and there's after. Before, after. We could also click right here and we have this split screen view, and we could slide this bar around and see the before and after. Before on the left, after on the right. Or we could click right there and then we have the before on top, the after on the bottom, or I could click there and we have the before on the left and the after on the right. We'll just click right there and use this full-size screen. We could close down that left panel by clicking here also. Give us a little more larger view of our image. To the right, we could get different views here. We could zoom in And when you zoom in, you have a navigator, and you could drag this box around your navigator to where you want to look specifically in your image. You could also click this little right arrow and click an exact percentage to view. Right here, this little light bulb will change this color of this border. You could go to black to white to gray, and I prefer gray. And to the right is our work area where we have the actual filters and our adjustments for those filters. Below that, we have a loop and histogram. Right now it's on loop mode. You could put it on the histogram by clicking next to it, and you could see a histogram if you so choose. You could close it down by clicking there. Now, with all that in the workspace, it's really relatively easy to use this plugin. Usually what I will do is I will send the image over and I'll just try different things. So I'm, let's say, in the landscape folder and I want to look at, we have Indian summer applied already. Let's say I just want detail extractor. I click on that. It will put detail extractor filter, will apply it to the image, and it replaced the Indian summer filter with the detail extractor filter. If I want to add one filter on top of the other, I would click here and I would add another filter. It leaves the detail extractor there, and now I could add, let's say, uh, tonal contrast. And you can see now it has two filters applied. It has detail, extractor, and tonal contrast. If I decide I don't like one, I could just click this little X right here and it will get rid of it. So I still have my detail extractor there. Now, if I don't want to click add filter, there's a faster way to do this. I could just hold the shift key in, and let's say I pick graduated neutral density. And what it will do is it will add that and keep the detail extractor. So that's another way to add a filter on top of another filter without clicking the add filter button again. So that's just a shortcut, I guess you could say. Now, you'll notice to the left of these names, there's little stars, and some of them are yellow. The ones that I use a lot, I've clicked on the little star. You see, if I click on it, the yellow's gone. If I click on it again, it's there. That puts them in my favorites. So you can see these are my favorites. Those are ones I find that I use quite often. So I would recommend that you do that too. That way you don't have to search for them in all these different folders. Also, each one of these filters will have different controls from one another, meaning look at the contrast only. I have a brightness slider, contrast only, soft contrast, saturation. Then we have these shadows and highlight sliders. Now, if I go then to detail extractor, you see I have a detail extractor slider, a contrast slider, saturation slider. I have an effect radius drop down. Then I have the same shadows and highlight sliders. So every one will have sliders that are specific to it. So in this video, it's kind of impossible for me to tell you what every single slider does because the sliders are going to be different for all the different filters that you plan to use. So what I would suggest you do is you pick a filter. Let's use this graduated user-defined filter. And then you could just like experiment. Click on this little box. You could see this color picker comes up. We could get this wheel. We could pick a color like that and use that color. And you could see it toned the image that color. You could also get the little eyedropper and kind of pick a specific spot in the image and tone the image that color if you so choose. Then you could change the opacity, make it less effective or less strong going to the left and stronger going to the right. How you're blending it, you could just experiment. Now what you might happen to do is you might have moved these sliders all around and you kind of liked it when it first went on, but after you moved the sliders all around, you really botched it up and you don't like it. Go down to this little flyout menu right here. And you can see right here it has reset filters. and you will have reset filter, I should say, and it has two different choices. Keep CPs, those are control points, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, or delete the control points. In this case, I have no control points, so I'm going to reset the filter, and that way it just went back to what it was right when I clicked on the filter on the left-hand panel. So that is just my best suggestion I can make to you. When you pick a filter, experiment with the sliders and see what they do. And if you don't like the filter altogether, just click this little X and it will delete it. If you pick a filter and you move sliders around and you didn't like whatever you did to it, just go to this little flyout menu and you could reset the filter and it will go back to the way it was right when you clicked on it. Now, the other thing you might notice is to the right of all the different filters, these little like pile of papers. And let's go to like Brilliance Warmth. And well, let's do a different one. Let's go to Detail Extractor. You can see here it brought out more detail in the sky. You can see I'll click the compare button. There's before and there's after. But if we look over here, you can see this little pile of papers. If I click on that, you can see that this panel opens up and I actually have 4 different detail extractors. I have the default view, which is the one it's using now. I could do large or strong large details. You could flatten detail. Now see, it's getting this crazy, like, I mean, horrible HDR toning to it. But that is something to be aware of, that all of these have multiple versions, and you could go through them by clicking through them like that. Like I kind of like bright contrast, let's say. Say I like that, which I really don't, but let's say I did. Then I could go over here and I could just readjust things to try to make it more to my taste, let's say. All right, so let's say I like that, which I technically don't, but let's say I did. Uh, I would want to add a new filter, or I could just save the image as is and go back to Lightroom. Or I could add a new filter by clicking there. But what I usually do is I just hold the Shift key and click a new filter, like tonal contrast. That, as I mentioned, will save the previous filter and add a new filter on top of it. Now, let's get rid of these because they are very poorly done. Let's pick something. I want to show you control points. And I want to pick something that is very obvious, if that's, bear with me here. Let's see here. I believe nothing in here that I could see. Let's go to architecture, go to nature. Here we go, dark contrast. I think that, yeah, that's very obvious. Okay, so I have this dark contrast filter. It's being applied to the entire image. Now, instead, maybe I just want to apply this to a specific part of the image. So what we do is we'll use control points. Now, there's 2 different versions, I guess, of the control point. You have this one with the plus sign, and that means when you add the control point, you're adding the control point with full strength. If you use the minus sign, you're adding the control point with 0 strength. It's called opacity, 0 opacity or 100% opacity. It really doesn't matter because you could adjust the opacity when you're done anyways from 0 to 100 or anywhere in between. So I usually just click plus. So I'm clicking that plus control point and I'm going to go to a specific part of my image right there. And you could see now the rest of the image is fine, but you could see right in here there is a section where the dark contrast is being added to the image. And if I click on this first little slider, that is the radius or how big of an area I'm adding this effect to, or this filter to. The next slider under that, if I hover over the slider itself, it's saying opacity. That's the actual opacity slider. And I could make it from 0. It's not even being applied to 100%. All right, so that gives you an idea. Now I have it added to the sky there. Now I'd like to add it over here too. I could just click another one, The easier way is to hold the Alt or Option key in. Alt if you have a PC, Option if you have a Mac, and just click on that little button right there and drag it over here. So now we have two of them. We have one there and one there. Now, maybe I want that over to the right a little bit more. Now I want to add another one up here. I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key in and drag another one there. So now I have three control points going across the sky. If you want to see where they're actually affecting the image, over here you can see each of these three control points are listed. If I click this little box on the first one, you'll see that the image turns into this kind of negative look. And you can see right here is where that control point is affecting the image. If I click it off, now we're back to the original image. Click this middle one, and that's where that middle one is affecting. Click that one, that is where the middle one and that one on the far left are affecting the image. Turn off the middle one. There we go. Stuff like that. Now, if I don't like any of these, I could just highlight them. Let's say I want to get rid of this one. I could then highlight it there and then click the trash can. And I want to get rid of that one. Let's say click the trash can. Now I have one over here. If I could move it around though, if I want, move it over there. Whatever, maybe move it down here to the water and make it smaller. And then I want another one, hit the Alt or Option key and make another one right there and make another one right there. So this is, you could see how quickly you could do this. And the real power of the Nik plugins are the control points. You really could fine tune where you want to apply the filter to the image. So again, I used dark contrast to make it very obvious so you could see what I was doing. Now, obviously, I don't think I want to use this. Now, let's say I just want to reset it for first. We'll go to this fly out menu, and go down to Reset Filter, Delete Control Points, right there. So it reset the filter back to when I just clicked it, and the control points are all gone. I want to get rid of it totally. That's a horrible filter in my opinion. So now we're back to my original image. There are no filters being applied. Usually what I would do is I would just go to my favorites. I like detail. See how it added detail to the sky specifically? Often I find I have to dial it down a little bit. So I dial detail down a little bit by moving the extractor slider to the left. That looks pretty good. And you can see it brought out more detail, I think, in the condominiums here. So I like that one. Now I want to add another one. Now if I just click on another one, it's going to replace the detail filter with whatever I click on. So be sure you hold the Shift key in. And I like to add tonal contrast usually too. So we'll add that. Now you could see it added it to the image, and it kept the detail filter there also. I could open that up and close it up like with that little expose triangle there. Now, this, is way too strong. You could go through, I don't know, try different, there's drop downs here, contrast type standard, there's a high pass, there's a fine. That one looks kind of cool, doesn't it? It's a little I mean, obviously it's over processed, but it's kind of got a neat look to it. There's balanced, and there's strong. And that's, very HDR look to it. So let's go with balanced. I kind of like that. And then we have the sliders. I could bring the highlights down a little bit and bring the midtones down a little bit. There we go. That looks a little better there. Now I want to see it without the tonal contrast, but with the detail. I could just unclick this box right there. There it is without the tonal contrast, but it still has the detail extractor. And there it is with the tonal contrast, without, with. Or I could see it without the detail if I so choose by clicking that box. So there's two there. Now I want to add one more just for the sake of argument. I'm going to Brilliance Warmth I'm going to add. So I'm going to hold the Shift key in. Now I could do it, I could add filter here, but I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to hold the Shift key in and click on Brilliance Warmth and see if that does anything pleasing. Now I'm going to turn it off by clicking there. You can see that's like ultra subtle. Very little. It just warmed it up mainly in the middle, but let's leave it as is. All right, so we have these three filters. Let's say I find I'm doing these three filters all the time. I could save this as a recipe. So I'll click right here and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to give it my Tony's Cityscapes. All right, I find, let's say I do these three filters all the time on cityscapes, and I'm going to click OK. Now, down here at the bottom, there were recipes, and you can see I have one, Tony Cityscapes. Now, whenever I import an image, if I want to just apply these three filters exactly as I have them set, I could go down here to that tab, Recipes, and apply it right there. So we're just going to get rid of that. Then we'll go back to our folders with our filters. So that really is, in a nutshell, what you could do with Color Efex Pro 4. Again, it's impossible for me to go through every single filter and tell you how to adjust the sliders. Quite frankly, it's just something you have to practice with. Just go to the filter that you want to do. If you kind of like it, play around with the sliders and remember that if you get them to a point where you screwed it up, you liked it before you started messing with it, you liked the image before you started messing with the sliders, go to this little flyout menu and reset the filter, and then you'll be back to where you started. So that's it. I'm done with the image. Let's say I like it, which I really don't, but let's say I did, and I'm going to click Save. Now what it will do, it will save the image, and it will open the image up in Lightroom. You'll see in a minute. And this is why I specifically said if you shoot JPEG, please make sure that you edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, because you might get it back in Lightroom and not like it. Now actually, now that I'm looking at it in Lightroom, I like it a lot better than I did when I was looking at it when I was in Nik. It does look a little more pleasing to me in Lightroom. So it's not bad. The detail extractor really extracts a lot of detail, especially in architecture, I found. And you'll find that once you start using Color Efex Pro 4, there's going to be certain filters that are going to be your go-to filters. Um, I know people that use Indian Summer like religiously on every single image they do. They put Indian Summer on it. There'll be things like that that you'll find. And that's why people love the Nik Collection. It's really that easy to use. You could just fly into there, apply a filter, and get out. If you want to apply more than one, people create recipes like I just did and apply their recipe and they're out. So take a look at the Color Efex Pro 4. I think you'll really like it. I know I do. I think it's an excellent, excellent plugin. That's it for our first ever episode on Nik Software. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys have any suggestions at all, leave them in the comments below. Thank you everyone that watches my videos. I truly do appreciate it. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.